thank you. Foreign Minister Julie Bishop is the latest federal MP to come under scrutiny for travel expenses. It's been revealed Miss Bishop spent $2,716 of taxpayers' money to attend a polo match in Victoria. But her office is defending the trip, saying Ms Bishop was invited and attended in her official capacity as Minister for Foreign Affairs and Deputy Leader of the Liberal Party. Now, it follows the suspension of Health Minister Susan Lee, who bought a luxury apartment while on a taxpayer-funded trip to the Gold Coast. And the recent report claims 3 government ministers charged us a combined total of almost $7 grand to attend a New Year's Eve party in 2015. But this is hardly the first example of such entitlement. In 2015, Bronwyn Bishop was forced to resign after spending more than $5,000 on a helicopter flight from Melbourne to Geelong. The same year, Labor's Tony Burke charged a family trip to Uluru on the public purse. That was worth about 12 grand. Those incidents sparked a review into the entitlement system, which came back with 36 recommendations, including harsher penalties and shorter lodgement times. Now, the government has acted on very few of them. They said they agreed with the recommendations, but haven't implemented them. So we hit the streets to find out exactly what you think of politicians using the public purse in this way.
I think it is an abuse of power because they are just using all our, taxpayers' money to use for themselves, really.
I think that it's wrong for ministers or any member of parliament to use their funds in that way.
I don't mind if they're going off to do something that they actually need to do, like for the country, but not just to have a holiday or something like that.
People are struggling at making ends meet, and who cares on taxpayers' money, flying anywhere she wants.
They ought to tighten the rules. It is disgusting that there are no rules for the politicians when everybody else has to work by them.
Yeah, a poll on our Facebook page reflects those attitudes. 97% of Australians agreeing that politicians should have their entitlements cut.
So what do the crossbench senators make of it all? Well, Pauline Hanson and David Leyonhjelm join us now. Good morning to you both. Let's go first to you, Senator Hanson. Look, there seems to be problems with the guidelines, right? But even if those are changed, there's a problem with judgment. How do we change the culture in Canberra so that judgment gets better?
It is, and you're totally right. 97% of Australians say they don't want it and they're not happy with what is happening. Look, what should have happened is, and I believe that going back 5 years at least, that let's put a dose of salts through the whole lot. Every parliament in there, every politician in there must actually be investigated. You mentioned about Tony Burke. $12,000. Was he asked to pay it back? I understand, when I looked at the figures, it was near $4 million that he had paid out on travel. I don't hear a word from the Labor Party or the Greens. Aren't they saying anything? Why? Because they shouldn't cast the first stone? I think the whole lot. There has to be accountability, and I'll tell you something. When we actually sign off on our travel, which we have to, we're responsible for it. It goes through a process. Now, I took a trip to Norfolk Island. I thought it was going to be covered by my costs because I had back-to-back meetings and I was representing people in Norfolk, came back, delivered my report to the ministers, and it was full on. There was no holiday, I can tell you that. But it was knocked back. And so I paid for my own trip and I paid for my own accommodation. So I thought it was in a process there, but apparently it's not. We have to be responsible for the monies that we actually spend on our travel or flights that are taken, and not to visit these functions that are funded, probably for donations to the political party or their campaigns. It's totally wrong.
Senator Leyonhjelm, the issue is that when MPs are caught stealing from us as taxpayers, there are virtually no consequences. Like if I charged Channel 7 for taking the family to Ayers Rock, to Uluru, I'd be fired for that.
Yeah, there is a problem with knowing what is official business What is parliamentary business? What is electorate business? My background is in business, and I take the same approach in my political life as I did when I was in business, which is to say, if it's to do with my job, if it's required to perform my role as a politician, just as it was when I was performing my role as a business manager, then it's a legitimate expense. And the primary purpose of the expense has to be related to the job. In fact, I participated in that inquiry that was initiated after the Bronwyn Bishop Choppergate affair. I met with the committee, and I think their recommendations are pretty sensible, certainly a step in the right direction.
Hang on, will you guarantee, give us a deadline, give us a date, you and Pauline, give us a date when these recommendations will be instituted, because everyone says they're great recommendations, but then they just sit on the shelf.
Well,
can you give us a date?
Yeah. Well, they've been sitting there for 11 months.
I know.
It's not. Any
Put a date. Put a date. Will you introduce them, Pauline? Will you introduce them in the first day back?
Actually, I haven't even seen the recommendations, all right? So I can't comment because I haven't seen the recommendations. This is before I came into Parliament. The whole fact is I need to have a look at the recommendations. Yes, they should pay back the monies that is not legitimate, but not only that, a heavy fine.
Yeah.
Heavily fine the
Well, the
politicians that have done the
recommendations
wrong
do
thing.
cover
but
that.
another thing, I don't support setting up another bureaucratic government department that is going to cost the taxpayers millions of dollars and another bureaucrat on possibly $700,000 or $800,000 a year. That's not the way to go. Hit people in the hip pocket, then they will start to wake up. That's where I'll be coming from.
All right.
Listen, we have to attract good people into politics, right? So why don't we just pay politicians more and get rid of entitlements, and then see how important these trips are to them if they have to pay for them themselves?
Yeah, David?
Yeah, well, the committee has recommended that the word entitlements be dropped and the word or the phrase job expenses be used instead. I think that's legitimate. I mean, it is an issue for politicians. People say, well, you live in an ivory tower, you need to get out more, you need to meet ordinary people and stop with your silly ideas. So you go out more, and then they go, well, look, you're spending all of our money going out and travelling around, you shouldn't do that either. So sometimes it's hard to win. I think it's got to be the primary purpose of the job. If you're incurring expenses specifically as a result of being a politician, and you wouldn't incur those expenses if you were just a private citizen and you weren't a politician, I think that's almost the dividing line. And we do need to be very conscious of the fact that it's not our money we're spending.
You've got to reflect the community. Pauline, you're on Sunrise every week. Every week, we're going to ask you to report back on when these recommendations are going to be implemented, and you pushing it through, okay? Because we're sick of it.
I have no problem. I will follow it up.
Okay,
Actually, look,
good.
I watch every dollar that I spend, and I only travel economy class, and I drive myself to the airport. I don't get a Comcast, so I do watch the taxpayers' dollars, and I'll lead by example.
Okay.
All right, David, just before you go, just quickly, you've caused a bit of controversy overnight where you have described childcare workers as just wiping noses and stopping kids from killing each other. Do you stand by that view? You're copping a lot of backlash, particularly from teachers.
Are you embarrassed?
That wasn't what I said. What I said was you don't need a certificate 18 months of study to be a childcare worker to learn how to wipe children's noses and stop them from killing each other. The point is childcare is too expensive. We all know it's too expensive. Why is it too expensive? Because we're requiring childcare workers to get certificates to do things that they already knew how to do.
But don't we need them to be qualified?
Well...
I'm with David on this one. He's right. He's definitely right.
But it's a poor way of expressing it. We understand the point that childcare costs are going up because of over-regulation, but to slam childcare workers like that is demeaning. You've got to be embarrassed.
I didn't slam them. I've been verbaled. I said you don't need a certificate to do those things.
But they do so much more than that, David. I'm wondering when the last time is that you've actually been into a childcare centre and see what they have done. That is such a tiny part of what they do in their given day.
Yes, but costs are going up. It's becoming unaffordable. The government is now proposing to spend another $3 billion of borrowed money to subsidise childcare. What's the cause of it? Too much regulation.
Can I just say something here in defence of David? Is that I've been a mother of 4 children, all right? I didn't need to get a certificate or qualifications to rear my 4 children, as many other women out there, mothers who are rearing their children. And it does need to be investigated. David is right. The rising costs, we cannot afford it. Nearly $4 billion a year for childcare, and that's what we, the taxpayers, are paying out. It needs an investigation. Why the rising costs and the expense.
Yeah, I think that people just had problem with the terms and got offended by that. We are out of time. Thank you both for being with us this morning.
Now, the other big